Welcome to the Why Factor, a chance to work out why we do what we do. BBC World Service podcasts are supported by advertising.
This week on the podcast Spark and Fire, actor Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
When people know you for being on Third Rock from the Sun or 10 Things I Hate About You, they don't want to cast you in their art film.
Joseph tells the story of starting the creativity platform Hit Record.
I had to take responsibility for my own creativity.
On Spark and Fire, creators share their stories to fuel your creativity. Spark and Fire is a Wait What original in partnership with the BBC. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for downloading this edition of The Why Factor from the BBC, a programme that seeks to find out why we do the things we do. It's the launch night for Chokki Dani, a new Indian restaurant in London. Vishnu, how's it going?
It's going a bit busy at the moment, and we got the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 checks, 11 checks here at the minute. So most of the starters have gone through, and a couple of the tables dessert started going, and mostly other than that everything is main now.
The kitchen team have been developing the dishes probably for the last 2.5 months. So they've had a good run, and now is the time that hotel where we get feedback from the general public.
And the menu's here in a beautiful kind of leather-bound menu folder, and standard poppadoms, chutney, different, I suppose, small dishes. They look like a momo chaat. Momo's like a Nepalese dumpling. Chaat is kind of potatoes and street food, chickpea street food, aloo tikki, coconut dish, a pulled, slow-cooked wrap. You're listening to the BBC World Service, and this is The Why Factor. I'm Marianne O'Hotter, and this week we're asking, why do so many people dream of opening a restaurant? And is the reality anything like the fantasy?
I'm very nervous, but at the same time relieved. It's been a lot of hard work over the past probably 14 months.
Amrit Gill previously worked in construction, but with the opening of Chokki Dani, he's finally fulfilling his dream to open a restaurant. Although a first-timer in the industry, Amrit has the advantage of a wealthy relative who can finance his plans.
When my uncle would always come to London, we like plain, simple food, but good food. And we've really struggled to find that in London. And he said, let's open a restaurant. And I said, I was always saying, well, there's plenty of restaurants in London. But the vision was from my uncle to say that we need to open a restaurant with the look and feel of what we do in India. We have a passion. If we look at figures in black and white, realistically, we wouldn't make any money, the money we're spending on the project. And it is because we're passionate about it, and we want to build the brand in the UK. And we really, really kind of want, I guess, to have a good experience while they're here.
I wanted it so bad. I'd be writing out menus when I should have been working. I was buying cookbooks like a crazed person. I was driving people nuts, and it was something that burned so brightly in me you could practically see the light.
Robert Maxwell from Toronto, Canada, was also consumed by a passion.
I sometimes think the spark of it began when I was a child, like most people's do. Me and my mum would sit there in the living room and just live vicariously through these television cooks. And so this sort of spark was born in me that, you know, when I grow up and move out, I'm going to cook like these television cooks.
Made it. Thank you so much for being here. Bless your hearts. Hey, I've got a great dish for you, and it's a great lump of steak.
His love of food and cooking has shaped his life.
You know, I'm kind of an anxious person, and chopping carrots calmed me down. And I carried that with me into my marriage. I cooked for my wife, and feeding people and, you know, breaking down raw ingredients into meals and nourishment. There's just something so visceral about it, sort of mammalian about it, so deep in our hearts to want to nourish people.
So was there a moment that you went, I'm going to do this, I'm going to open my own restaurant?
Yeah, well, I'd hosted a booth at a market. It's sort of where I got the taste for it. And in Toronto, we had something called the Underground Market. And I was one of the first to go there, and I was so excited. And of course, it was like absolute chaos, adrenaline rush, cooking for 400 people. But I got through it. And the feeling I got was that I can do this.
I used to teach a course at Temple University at the night school, and it was called So You Want to Open a Restaurant.
Linda Lipsky has a restaurant consultancy in the US and has advised over 800 restaurant owners. Why would you say people want to open restaurants?
One of the first was that it looks easier than my current job. Or in some cases, they have the misconception because of the hours that are posted on the door, where it says that the restaurant is open from 5 to 10. So they think, oh, big deal, 5-hour day. But it's not. Then you'll have the folks that say, oh, everyone loves our family recipes. Whenever they come over and my mother makes spanakopita or meatballs or such and such dressing, we get so many compliments on it. And then there are those folks that say, oh, there's no authentic Korean restaurant in the area, so I'm Korean and I want to open a Korean restaurant.
Cuando empiezas a comer, también sientes si aquello está hecho con amor.
You can really feel when the food's made with love or with force. It's so ingrained. Like if you're talking about your grandma's macaroons or your mom's rice dish. Because we can say it's made with love, with emotion.
Que está hecho con amor, que está hecho con emoción.
Dr. Inma Puig works at El Celler de Can Roja near Barcelona in Spain. It boasts 3 Michelin stars, the highest foodie accolade in the world. Diners need to book their table up to a year in advance and expect to pay around $400 each for their meal. Inma isn't a chef, waitress or maitre d'. She's the in-house psychologist. She helps the team working at the very top of their game cope with the stresses of a very demanding industry.
Más que nada, primero por el nivel de exigencia que uno
More than
mismo.
anything, it's the high expectations that people working at this level hold themselves to. And after that, the level of expectation the clients have. The result of all this is what happens in every restaurant. In limited time, you have to cook and take out a series of dishes because the client's waiting for them. And they're doing that in a cramped space when there's a lot of other people working. On top of that, it's usually hot. And let's not forget, much of the time they're walking around with big knives in their hands.
All the stories we hear are the ones of people who chased a dream with, the odds stacked against them, with maybe not that much experience, but huge enthusiasm. And then when they succeed, people love that story. We eat it up. It's inspirational. It makes people working at a dull job at a desk dream big.
Robert Maxwell had always had the dream, but he didn't have the money to open a restaurant. He also had a regular job and a young family to support. But then his job came to an end and he was given a cash payout.
And there, all of a sudden, in my hand, I had money, I had opportunity, I didn't have a job, and then I said, I'm going to do this.
He found a place in a quiet residential area, ideal for a small neighbourhood bistro serving modern, casual food. He called it the Beech Tree, in homage to Marco Pierre White's restaurant, the Yew Tree.
When I first stepped into the space, when I was first handed those keys, it was a hot day, I remember, very hot and humid out. And I set into that restaurant, and it was now no longer some other person's business or an empty space. It was now my space.
The Beech Tree opened to rave reviews and queues around the block. But with only 28 seats, a complicated menu, and a limit to how expensive they could make the food, even when the restaurant was full, Robert wasn't getting in enough money to cover the bills.
My dream absolutely crumpled up into a little ball, and it went from dream to dream realized, has infinite gravity. And I suddenly was overwhelmed and terrified, and I sort of felt a weird self-loathing and regret, but I couldn't show any of it. I had to hide it because I had been so naively optimistic.
The premises had been running as a restaurant until just a few weeks before Robert moved in. But it turned out it wasn't up to scratch. Essential equipment needed replacing, and there was a rodent problem.
I was blinded by passion, and I wanted to cook, and I wanted to make food. And then all of a sudden, this is something that a lot of people that want to get into restaurants, sort of home cooks, don't realize, that you're not cooking food and creating. You're fixing plumbing. You're trying to chase rats out the back alley. You're scraping grease off things. You're fixing a dishwasher. You're trying to hire staff. And there's no romance to any of that.
To keep his restaurant dream alive, Robert ended up selling the family house, cashing in his savings and pension, and borrowing money from friends and family. And it still wasn't enough.
I can give you the exact same result of opening a restaurant, except you can do it quicker. Simply liquidate all your money into cash and light it on fire. Because that's what happens to most inexperienced people that open a restaurant. They take all their cash, they liquidate it and then they burn it, and they have nothing to show for it. The only thing is if you burn your cash, it's quicker. You don't lose 3 years of your life. You have $500,000 in your pocket and lots of free time and no kids and no concerns about addiction problems. Go for it.
I'll tell you the joke in the restaurant industry. How do you make $1 million in the restaurant industry?
Go on.
Start with $2 million. Yeah.
Linda Lipsky says her aim is to convince at least half the people on her course that they shouldn't open a restaurant. She says she's saving them from themselves.
The goal of the program was to make it seem as difficult as possible. I like to make sure that people don't go into a business without their eyes open. I want them to have their eyes open. If they want to continue afterward, that's fine, but get the help that you need. So if you have a lot of money, and that is one of the main reasons why they fail, because they don't fund, you need to have approximately 6 months worth of working capital, as if you had no customers whatsoever coming in. And if you don't have that much after you're finished with your construction and everything else, then you really shouldn't even start.
The premises was expensive because it's a river-fronted premises, and we haven't leased it. We bought the freehold to the property. The fit-out was expensive. We haven't received the final bill yet, but we're looking close to £5 to £6 million to build the premises. But we've got a 5,000 square foot property on the River Thames in central London, and we're actually probably in a destination which is going to become prime central London in 10 years' time because of everything's going on.
Would you notice the money if you lost it all?
No. He says modestly.
So I've nipped back to the kitchen. They're in the middle of dinner service. The chefs are all crowded around the central station, all working on different dishes. And the atmosphere is electric. So I'm going to try some of this lamb curry. Okay, proof is in the eating. Oh, that's lovely. Oh, it's kind of rich and mellow and with a heat. Oh, that's good. And the food, the people here, are you happy?
Yes, that's why, as far as I can see, I haven't seen any grumpy faces, so I'm glad. I'm just saying everything was great, so it seems positive.
Fingers crossed for the future, then.
Fingers crossed.
A rooftop restaurant overlooking the beach and the twinkling lights of the city. A perfect location to meet up with friends, family, or perhaps for a date. This restaurant, Level Up, is in Gaza, at the epicentre of the ongoing Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Gaza is a small strip of land bordered by Israel, Egypt and the Mediterranean Sea. Israel controls the borders tightly and the movement of people and goods is severely restricted. In 2014, the conflict reached a new level, with Israeli airstrikes and bombing, Palestinian rocket attacks and ground fighting. It resulted in the death of thousands of people, the majority of them Gazans. Basil Alewa is the owner of Level Up, and he's adamant that he'll stay open no matter what.
Unfortunately, the building that Level Up is in was hit severely during the war. It costed us some investment to fix the damages that took place during that hit. But then we reopened again. A couple of months after the war, we opened again. I have 36 staff members here. It's not easy to let go of them and, put them in their houses, in their homes without jobs. If I manage to maintain those 36 jobs, that's more than enough for me at this point, until we pass this difficult period.
So what can you expect if you book for dinner at Level Up?
It's a restaurant that serves both Middle Eastern and international cuisine. It ranges from fine veal bourgeois or teriyaki steak down to sandwiches.
And although sandwiches might not sound like fine dining, they're a treat in a place where fruit and meat can be hard to get hold of, the power supply is precarious, and many people depend on United Nations food handouts. Level Up offers a taste of normality.
Gaza lacks entertainment venues. We don't have a theater, we don't have a cinema, we don't have lots of other entertainment facilities. And people consider going out to restaurants as the only available thing they could do for entertainment here. We believe in what our famous Palestinian poet said once, that we love to live our lives whenever we have access to it. And people in Gaza love to live their lives. We want to live a normal life.
And have you ever regretted opening Level Up?
Never. Never.
Around the world, the way people eat, travel and socialise is changing. Some of us will go a long way for a special meal, but particularly in urban areas, people don't spend as much time cooking, but don't always want to eat out. Restaurants need to adapt. I've come to the outskirts of London's business district, the Canary Wharf, to what is basically a car park under a flyover, and in there are a bunch of low black buildings, each with a turquoise door, and apparently this is a collection of restaurants.
So we're here in a kitchen where we only focus on deliveries. So we're basically, we don't have customer contact in that sense.
25-year-old Galit Weinberg is the founder of Subu Sake, a virtual restaurant that only ever delivers. They're beautiful. They're these little pots, and you can see, because they're clear jars, plastic jars, you can see the layers of the food, and it's kind of rainbow shades, really pretty looking, but also kind of look healthy but tasty.
Each of our dishes is basically inspired by one of my travels and by a completely different country, and all of them have like a secret story to tell.
Their signature dish is the subu, a cross between sushi and a burger, a colourful pot layered with fresh raw fish, grains, veggies and sauces known as sidekicks. It's aimed at the thousands of health-conscious city workers on the other side of the railway tracks. I mean, this is a forgive me for saying it, quite a strange place. We are under a flyover in the east of the city where you've kind of got to get 3 trains and a bus to come out here, and then there's kind of a bunch of, I don't know, what would you describe these as? Like shipping containers, but each one has a kitchen from a restaurant that's delivering food right across the capital.
Yes, so actually it is a shipping container, which is actually quite funny, but at the same time it gives small companies, as we are, or new companies, a great opportunity, because compared to an actual restaurant, you don't have to carry the high costs.
These so-called dark or ghost kitchens have been set up by food delivery company Deliveroo and leased to restaurants who can then try new concepts for the delivery market or simply get closer to the demand. Customers order online or from an app on their phone, and their meal is delivered direct to the door.
So we have 2 tablets here. One tablet is basically for the orders coming in, where we just, if an order comes in, we just need to accept it. And then we have another tablet where we basically need to mark it ready. That's basically for the Deliveroo team out there.
So on one side of the kitchen, we've got the kind of food prep area with all the ingredients and the packaging that's ready to go. And then on the other side, there's a big clock with a kind of countdown timer, and then 2 small tablets, one that says live orders and one that says completed orders. Galit and her team are making food with passion and creativity, but without the punishing economic risk. It's a new way to square the circle. It means they don't ever meet their customers, but maybe that doesn't matter. Do you think most of your customers know that their food is coming from a ghost kitchen that's actually in a shipping container in East London?
No, I don't think so. So we had some messages on social medias, for example, if there is a place where they can actually buy it. I think they have no clue.
Wow.
The ghost restaurant concept can work very well and will basically destroy all the restaurants around. From past year, delivery demand increased by 600% and restaurant visits increased by 1%. I think the idea of just focusing on delivery is great, and we really believe that it is the future.
And here's a final word from a chastened Robert Maxwell.
In the end, I have my family, I have my health, and I have a decent job. What more could I ask for, really? and a dream fulfilled, and a cautionary tale, and a huge life lesson. But I'm happy to report that sort of after coming through all of it, my passion for food reignited, and it reignited even better, because I understand now that when I talk about the sort of acme, the evolution of my passion, where I thought it would be a restaurant, I've learned it wasn't a restaurant. It was going all the way back to that chopping carrots with a glass of wine. That was what was the acme of the evolution of my dream was. I was already living it. It was the process, not a product.
Thanks for downloading this edition of The Why Factor. It was presented by me, Marianne O'Hotter, produced by Priscilla Niede and Chloe Hudger-Mathieu. The sound design was by Nigel Appleton, and our editor is Andrew Smith. Why not check out our previous editions exploring subjects like alcohol addiction, vegans, and fear versus fact? We're just a few days away from the launch of a new podcast investigation from the BBC World Service and Norway's NRK.
Starting on the 16th of April.
A major new podcast series.
She was laying with her head down there and her legs up here.
A woman's unidentified body, a 47-year-old mystery, our investigation.
Search for Death in Ice Valley wherever you find your podcasts.
You can hear the preview now.
Subscribe now and you won't miss the first episode.
This week on the podcast Spark and Fire, actor Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
When people know you for being on Third Rock from the Sun or 10 Things I Hate About You, they don't want to cast you in their art film.
Joseph tells the story of starting the creativity platform Hit Record.
I had to take responsibility for my own creativity.
On Spark and Fire, creators share their stories to fuel your creativity. Spark and Fire is a Wait What original in partnership with the BBC. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts.